Everyone, welcome to the Passioneer Showcase. I'm super happy, proud, honored, extremely excited to share with you all a vision that I've been working on over the past year, and also some of the amazing projects that you guys are going to see tonight. So, first and foremost, I actually have a question for you all. So, what if we leaned into our passions? That is a question that I found myself asking in high school, in college, and so I want to do this quick little activity with you all. So I want you all to close your eyes and take a deep breath. I'm going to tell you a series of statements. What if I told you you're going to be successful? What if I told you you're going to be in a loving community that not only pushes you to grow, but you can make a big impact in? What if I told you you're going to be confident, strong, and steady? You may have an image popping up in your head. You may have a place. You may have a couple emotions that come up. Hold on to those emotions. You guys can open your eyes. Thank you all for doing that with me. Now, a little bit of information about me. My name is Anthony Ramirez. I'm born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, literally down the street from here. But I really want to tell you guys a story that really stuck with me as a kid. So I came from a house of house painters, and I went to a job with my dad when I was 8 to 10 years old. And it was in Palos Verdes, and literally right when I stepped out of the car, I took a breath of fresh air, and I was like, wait, Dad, why is the air so fresh over here? Why is it so quiet over here? Why is there no helicopters over here? The first thing he told me was, the moment you start going into education and you get a good job, you can work and live in places like this. That stuck with me. So then I ended up going to USC, studied at the Ivan Young Academy, and then soon was on track to pretty much enter the tech space. As someone who was building products and building projects that I want to address the community, I found myself aiming to work in the tech space, and I craved it. But when I got there back in 2021, 2022, I actually hit a wall, and I felt depressed because I realized at that point that actually wasn't the thing that I wanted. And so I actually took a step back from that, and I realized that there was a real need out there. How can we talk about the things that we want while also aiming to the things of those feelings that we just had? And so I realized in my time, I encountered two kinds of people, the dreamer and the builder. The dreamer is someone who has the ideas of things they want to work on, but the moment they engage with somebody, whether it's a professional, their friends, or even in their family, it kind of sounds crazy. And the thing is, the more they kind of talk about it, the more they end up finding that there's not a lot of spaces to actually engage in this kind of discussion. That's the dreamer. Then there's the builder, someone who actually took the leap, took that step, whether it was a business, whether it was an initiative, whether it was a workshop, they managed to manifest it. But because they didn't really have the opportunity to dream big, it stopped at that one point in time. And so for one of them, it's the early stop. For the other one, it's the continuation and building upon it. These are the two people that I've encountered during my time, and that I soon found myself in this space. And so the real thing that I wanted to focus on here was a community that focused on talking about your passions and talking about the things that you're interested in. This is the real opportunity here. There's so many people out there who have these ideas but don't really have the space to actually just talk about it. Because the moment they do, you kind of feel crazy, and some places may make you feel crazy. And so that is the reason why I started South Central Innovation to begin with. South Central Innovation is a home for the vision, for the passion, for the dreamers, for having spaces to actually talk about the things you're interested in, while giving you the space to actually grow on it and start to feed into it. And so South Central Innovation is a home for all of this. This is something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. And so I do have a quick message from Matthew Manos. He's an advisor from us. And so before we move forward, we have a video from him. He won't be joining us tonight, but he delivered a really amazing video. So.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matthew Manos. I am the founder of Very Nice, which is a design strategy practice that gives half of it away for free to nonprofit organizations. I'm also an associate professor and associate dean at the USC Iovine and Young Academy, and my specialty is creativity and ideation. I have had the pleasure of knowing Anthony for several years now. I actually first met Anthony through his application to the Iovine and Young Academy, where he showcased his work at TXT, or Teens Exploring Technology, and I instantly knew that this guy was a fit for our program. As a student, I was able to have Anthony in many different classes and was proud to mentor him in our senior capstone class, The Garage, on Alt-Ed, which was his first venture that really paved the way for South Central Innovation, First Gen X, and Wonky Pets. What I see in Anthony is that he is one of the most driven in mission and purpose, but also in dedication and hard work students that I've ever had. Anthony is laser focused, yet flexible and iterative. He is stubborn in all of the best ways, but agile enough to know when to pivot and change. Anthony is also really funny and naturally empathetic. He believes in supporting his community and giving back as not an extracurricular, but really as something that's ingrained in part of the day-to-day of what he does. Why I really believe in the work of South Central Innovation and this Passioneers program, I really particularly resonate with the mission to support students as they build the futures they deserve through mentorship, creativity, and community rooted in South Central. Too often, our futures are prescribed to us, or we're unknowingly kind of coasting through life, checking boxes and fulfilling expectations, or even mirroring pathways that we've seen. Why this matters more broadly is that by empowering people to think critically about their path, we can ensure that everyone is doing what they are called to do, not what they are told to do. And before I go, I want to shout out two inaugural Passioneers in their incredible work who are really ultimately showcasing all of this in motion. One of the Passioneers, Michael Nafier, has developed an artistic pedagogy called mapping, a language meant to unite artists across disciplines. He is using this framework to build a creative community called Atlas, where artists collaborate and with deeper intention and shared understanding. Another amazing Passioneer, Audrine, created a workshop called Rooted and Ready, an accountability workshop that centers around reflecting, planning, and preparing for the year ahead. She is expanding her workshops to build a community called Trellis, a practice space where people in their 20s can discover their goals and career paths. I'm so excited for the future of the Passioneers program and for South Central Innovation and everything that Anthony and all the people involved go on to do. Thanks so much for being there at the event to support these wonderful people, and have a wonderful time.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, so we may have mentioned a word to you guys, Passioneer. So I want to take a moment to actually define this. What is a Passioneer? A Passioneer is someone who envelops, creates the life around their passions, around their interests. Everyone has an inner spark and thing that drives them. There's a reason why you do the things that you do. Some people call it side hustles, some people call it interests, some people call it hobbies. But there's a reason why you're sticking to that. The more you start to pull on that and understand that, the more you're actually becoming a Passioneer, enveloping, creating the life around your passions and interests. The reason why I brought together the word Passioneer is because there isn't a title or a description to the people who are describing what they want to do in life, or the change they want to create, or the life that they want to embody. Typical words is either entrepreneur or hustler, but I think Passioneers takes a different perspective on not only addressing you as an individual, but also the calling that is pulling you to the future. Also, I own this word now. This is a trademarked word now. So So what do I actually do with a Passioneer? How do you become a Passioneer? So we actually have a Passioneers program that starts to really engage with you as an individual and starts to grow on that interest. So we talk with you, we do a series of reflections, and we pretty much guide you on what is the thing that drives you, and can we pull it more out of you? Turns out, it's actually very easy to start pulling that out of you, because you'll see that just in those feelings that you just had when we were reflecting, there was moments of happiness, moments of joy. You started smiling, you started seeing more. That is the symbol of a Passioneer, and that is the practice that I did with the 2 Passioneers that you guys are gonna meet soon. And so, Passioneer stands at the center of confidence, knowing, and strength. The thing that separates us from a lot of other communities out there, so you may have heard of like incubators and accelerators. The thing about those spaces is they focus on a business or an articulation after the fact, not connected to your vision or you. They have really good jobs at pretty much accelerating your initial business, but when it comes to the actual manifestation of where does that come from, right? The business idea or project that you had manifested in a certain way. And although accelerators and incubators are good at developing that, we're trying to take a step further from that. What is this feeling or calling that you have as a whole? And then separate from that, there may be skill building spaces or platforms. Those teach you specific skills, but without the knowledge and foresight of the thing that you like and of the thing that you want, it may not serve you the best way you can. And so that's where Passioneer stands at the center of this, not only putting you as a visionary and founder, but really pushing you forward to the future that you want to create. Welcome.
I'm so sorry.
And so this is really what it looks like in practice. When you start to engage in the passion or things that you want to do, you really find yourself smiling more, enjoying your time more. And so what I'm really excited to show you all is what this looks like in practice. What does it look like to actually ask the question of what is the thing that brings me joy, and how can I continue to pull on that and create the projects and futures that I want to create? So today, we're going to be actually showcasing a couple Passioneers, 2 of my inaugural Passioneers. First one is Michael Nafier. And I met him in college. We reconnected back in November, and soon enough, he told me about his idea of working in Atlas. And so one of the big things that he was noting with me was this notion of screaming into the void, which a lot of us visionaries and future Passioneers can always feel. This idea that we had stuck in our head, but didn't have a way to really articulate it. Well, I'm proud to say, Michael's now taking the next step in his venture and working on his project that makes him happy. So, without further ado, Michael Nafier. Hi.
In our brain, we have this network called the default network. And this network comes online when we are not actively doing a task. Researchers say that this has to do with our daydreams, when our mind wanders. This is where we go to, and there's a lot that suggests that we can find who we really are through this network, because we can understand, oh, when I'm not immediately called to do something, where does my mind go? What do I think about? What are my things that I fantasize and desire? A study was conducted by scientist Edward Bessel and his research team to understand how art connects to our brains. In this study, participants were put in an fMRI scanner where they looked at paintings that they hadn't encountered before. And they were asked to say whether or not they were moved by these paintings. And what this research found was that the default network, this mind-wandering, daydreaming network, lights up when we see art, when we come across art that we resonate with, that we feel touched by, that we feel moved by. Thank you. Figure out the slides. Did I click on it? Is that what it was? Beautiful. Anthony, everybody. What this suggests is that art has an actual physiological ability to tap into our sense of self. Meaning that when we view art, it's not just that we feel something, but rather our art is who we are. When I was 9 years old, I watched a movie that irrevocably changed my life, that I can single-handedly say was the reason that I started dancing, the reason I became an artist and pursued the path that I did. That movie, Camp Rock 2, the final jam. I was obsessed with this movie, y'all. I choreographed dance routines on my neighbors. I listened to this soundtrack over and over and over. I was obsessed with it. And my mom signed me up for a hip hop and breaking class with my two best friends at the time. This is actually a picture from one of the first dance classes I ever took. And from this point on, dance really became the focal point of my life. I joined the competition team and I started training in more styles. I trained in ballet and jazz and contemporary, tap, lyrical, hip hop, whole nine. And I followed this all the way through high school. And eventually, I decided that I wanted to study this in college as well. And so I applied for the USC Kaufman School of Dance and got into that. My dream was to be a choreographer. I wanted to create movement. And what I was told the path to achieve this was that I would join a dance company. I would dance for 10 to 20 years or however long it took before my body gave out. And then after that happened, I would either go into teaching or I would become a choreographer. And so I set out to college with that path in mind, that is exactly what I would do, that I would learn the skills to get into a company, to dance my heart out and eventually follow my dream. However, when I got to college, I learned that this path was fed to me by a system that didn't prioritize me, a Eurocentric system that privileged certain art forms over others at the detriment of them, that said, this is the only way you can do this and any other path you take is not a relevant path. And this shook me to my core because I had built my whole journey and my whole identity on this path that I was going to become a choreographer through this way. And it threw me into a complete spiral. And it left me asking, is this space meant for me? This was my freshman year. And around this time, this is when COVID hit. And we were sent back home and I was forced to dance in my bedroom with about this much space. And during this time, I found myself so burned out and so detached from my dance practice. I just needed another creative outlet. I found this refuge through music. During this time, I picked up the guitar and I began learning some simple songs. This eventually turned into me recording myself and then producing some little beats in GarageBand. And eventually, this music practice became a real center of my life. And what I found was that as my music practice deepened, I found myself drawing comparisons to my dance practice. You see, these skills these ideas that I wanted to execute musically, but didn't necessarily have the musical abilities yet to see them through, These were ideas that I knew intimately well in my body through years of dance training. And I began to draw on my dance experience as a way to inform my music making process, leading me to start to understand that maybe these things weren't so different after all, because up until this point I had kept these practices really separate because I had such a complicated relationship with dance. I didn't want to taint it. I didn't want to taint this new love for music with that. Eventually, however, I started making those connections, and this sparked this idea for my senior thesis project. I had this idea that I would do a live electronic music show, all original music compositions by me, and I would have dancers improvising to that. In the early demo tests of that, I brought some of the music pieces that I've made to dancers to start to see how they would move to it, and I realized something really quickly, which was that through my music practice, my ear had developed differently. And although dancers are really incredible at interpreting music and bring such a unique sense of musicality, the things that I was listening for were now no longer things that dancers could pick up on, simply because they just lacked the context and the perspective. What I needed was a way to express these musical ideas to my dancers. This led to what I would eventually call mapping. In its very early stages, mapping was simply a way for me to teach dancers music production terminology. I figured that if they could understand the tools and the concepts that I was working with, then they would be able to hear them in their own practice and better be able to utilize them. This took the course of a few months as we built up to this project, and it went really successfully, and it was really cool to be able to see dancers pick up on that. But as I started delving into more professional collaborations post-graduation, I realized that I didn't have the luxury to teach my collaborators an entire musical curriculum in order to speak the same language and get on the same page. What I needed was a middle ground, a way to communicate the essence of the things that we were feeling using language that we both understood. This got me really curious about what language was there that already existed that could connect these two forms. What concepts were shared that we were both already on the same page about. This wasn't a new language, but rather a way to connect existing knowledge and intuitive knowledge of both our practices and of life in the way that we perceive it as human beings. From this, I synthesized 7 overarching concepts that I believe connected music and dance. Now, with my collaborators, we could identify that the essence of a piece lived in, for example, the relationship between two dancers. In using that information, I could then go back to my music and find a congruent relationship, therefore uniting the essence of what we felt was making the piece work. Working in this way not only opened me up to new ways of connecting to a form that I had previously lost touch with, but it also gave me a new way to engage with forms that I had no prior experience in. I found myself watching films and seeing paintings through the lens of these overarching concepts, and it was really empowering because even though I had no technical training in these things, I felt suddenly the barrier to entry of me being able to understand them was taken down. This serves as the basis for what mapping is currently, a creative methodology that gives artists the language and tools to understand the essence of their work and how to communicate that essence with each other. In addition to the lens framework, mapping also acts as a holistic tool for idea generation, editing, and analysis. Now, you may be asking, Michael, that's fantastic, but what does that actually mean? What does this actually look like? I can show you an example. We have this painting. I really love this painting. It's called Empty Nude by Won Jin Kim. I'm not a painter. I don't understand painting techniques, but I know that this piece really resonates with me, and I want to be able to understand why. What I can do is look at it through the lens of space. Space is this thing that I think we intuitively understand as humans, something we interact with. And by looking at it through the lens of space, I can say, oh wow, I really like the negative space. I like how empty it feels. Something about that emptiness, it really resonates with something in me. Okay, I take that, I have that piece of knowledge. How would I look at it through the lens of quality and texture and color, right? I really like how warm the colors are in this. It evokes this sense of warmth in me. I take that. I can look at it through the lens of inner life, this innate knowledge within me that I can connect with. And I can say something about just the fact that the subject of this is a person. Even if it's not a fully drawn person, it's a person. And that brings this instant resonance to me that I connect with. Okay, using these very simple lenses and intuitive knowledge, I've now identified some things that I really like about this. What this does now, I've built up this personal knowledge base. So that way I can better seek out these kind of things that I like in other art forms. What this also does is I can bring this back to my own practice and say, at one point I really resonated with the emptiness of this. How can I as a dancer bring that same negative space, bring that same emptiness, or bring that same warmth to my work? That was it as an analysis tool. As a generative tool, this is actually from a workshop that we did this past Wednesday, where we brought dancers and visual artists together. And we were exploring through the lens of shape. How can I find shape in music and translate that into the way I dance? And from that, from noticing shape in dance, translate that to visual art and drawing. And what this does really nicely is, I think as artists, sometimes we rely a lot on the idea of inspiration. We wait for the spark. But as professional working artists, we're not always afforded the luxury to wait for that spark to happen. What this does as a generative tool, it allows us to dig into things that already exist and find the spark from there and let that grow organically. As an editing tool, I can speak for myself personally. I found myself, whenever I reached a certain point in the process, just hitting a wall. I knew that a lot of work had to be done to get this thing from 80% of the way done to 100%. But I didn't have the structure to do that. And as a result, it would just fall apart. And all the really hard work and essence that I put into it in the beginning, I would lose it. I needed a way to make sure that the essence remained intact from the inception of the idea through the execution. And the first process where I ever used this was on a piece that I called Endings and Beginnings. It was a piece of music that I originally wrote to score a scene in a film that never came to the light of day, but I still decided to see that piece through. And I had gotten to a place where I felt I had something, but I didn't know where to continue. And so I used this editing process as a lens check of saying, I know a lot needs to get done, let me just focus on one area right now. That way in this editing session, I am only working on that. I'm not touching anything else. And that way, my editing remains focused. The essence can remain intact. And so, with this piece in particular, I looked at it through this lens of quality, and I said, well, the sounds I chose, they feel voice-like. They feel like they have a breath to them. I wanted to make sure that these qualities remained intact. And so, as I did my editing process, I made sure to use that as my home base. That once I was done with that round of revision, if I still felt those things, I knew that I did my job right and the essence was intact. The nice part about this also is that it is a holistic tool and a modular one, where I can use this from the inception of the idea to generate it all the way through the execution. Or if I already have a process that works for me, I can use mapping as a spot check to hit those areas where, maybe I need some extra help and some structure in this certain part, analyzing my references, editing my work. I can bring it in, use it as need be, and discard, allowing for real flexibility and accessibility in the process. Using mapping for the last 3 years has really changed my perspective on my life and art, because it has taught me how to find points of connection. They say that art practices are life practices, and the practice of me finding the points of connection between the things that I know and the things I don't translates every day in my life when I talk to people from different perspectives as me, trying to find the things that connect us rather than separate us. It's imbued me with this sense of compassionate curiosity, thinking I may not be able to see on the surface what connects us, but I'm sure there's something. And I'm sure there is something that we can find together. This process really changed all of that for me, and I found myself in need of a community to share that practice with, a community that was also invested in building work based off of collaboration, connection, curiosity. This is why I made Atlas. Atlas is the container for all of these things. Our mission is to serve and empower artists through curated initiatives that drive that curiosity, collaboration, and connection that exists inside all of us, so that we as artists can create work that serves and empowers humanity. We do this through our workshops, our artist residency, and our online programs, all various education platforms where artists can learn and apply this system to their own process, where they can gain deep, in-depth processing creation, working with other artists to create their own works, in an online resource, so that way remote artists can have access to these things, because I don't believe that art is something that is reserved for the capable few, or the few who can go to school for it and learn about it. Giving these tools is so important to me because I believe as artists, it is our duty to be translators of essence and to be vessel makers. As an artist, it is my job to craft a vessel in which you can put your personal experience, your thoughts and feelings into this, and know that they are held, know that it is shaped for you, for that. And it is my job in my art making process to be as intentional and clear about why I'm making this, so that way you see it and say, I know exactly what goes there. I know exactly what experience I have that resonates with me, that belongs in this piece. Moving forward from here, we are working on the newest iteration of mapping, working to involve as many forms as we can, so that way we get a more holistic view of all the artist communities needed for this. We're developing our workshop series so artists can learn mapping and take these skill sets into their own fields and start creating work that resonates. And we're looking to build our team as well. I'm so fortunate to have my two current team members here, Maya Davis and Cardin Chung. I could not have done this without their incredible support, and we're always looking for more. And so what we need to continue this, one, we need subject matter experts. It is incredibly important to me that being an artist steeped in so many practices that have such a deep history and lineage in these communities, it's important to me that the work right here reflects that knowledge, reflects that experience and that lineage. And so we are looking for subject matter experts to help bring this knowledge into the next tier of interdisciplinary connection and communication. We're looking for community partnerships. If you have a space that resonates with these ethos of compassionate curiosity, of connection, of collaboration, we are looking for the place to house these sessions, these workshops, these residencies. If you have people who are interested in these, please come and find us. And we're looking for advisors invested in legacy, who have experience building long-term rooted communities that are sustainable, rooted in community practice, curiosity, and exploration. I believe that art is our most powerful and potent connection to ourselves. And it is my duty to make sure that in a time where there exists so much separation, that we can bring each other together and do it empowered in our experience, in our knowledge, and in our views of what the world can be. Thank you.
Mike and Matthew, everyone. So amazing, so amazing. And so next up, we got Audrey Fune. I got to know her a little bit, so I guess a little bit before she comes up. I got to know her actually through the lab here. I actually started engaging here at the lab starting April of last year. And around that time, I actually saw one of her first presentations when she actually graduated from the program here. I then brought a series of books that I saw that would my contribution to this space. And she was actually one of the people who actually picked up one of my books back in April, May. And so we reconnected in December, and that's when I told her about Passioneers, and that's what told me about Trellis and what the project she wanted to work on. And so without further ado, Audrey Fune.
Hey guys, my name is Audrey, and I am the founder of Trellis. If you don't know, if you're not a plant daddy or a plant mommy, you might be wondering, what is Trellis? We'll get there. But first, I wanted to share some context about me. I am Filipino. I come from an immigrant background. Here's a picture of my family who's here with me today. I'm the eldest out of 3, and a lot of the times it kind of felt like I had to be the first one to figure it out myself. And because of that, I also felt like this. Just a little girl living the world for the first time. Sorry guys, I totally forgot to pull up my script. And a little brief timeline. So throughout my high school and college years, I was set on being a teacher for like 7 years. I loved being in the classroom. I loved engaging with younger generations. I fell in love with this beauty of journeying with people to impact people, whether it's one moment or brief moments over time. Then, my last year of senior year at Cal State Long Beach, I said psych and pivoted to design, because I felt like design was where you could expand and explore what these moments in the classroom can look like and feel like, and it doesn't just have to be limited to the younger generation. And after I graduated, these post-graduation high of new beginnings and new hope, I felt like I was thrown into the abyss of the real world. I felt confused, lonely, overwhelmed, and consumed with this pressure of needing to figure it out. And that's when I realized, or when I was talking to other people and other friends, I realized that I wasn't the only one. And when I had these conversations, I started getting mad. I was like, why hasn't there been a support system or tools to ease our transition in school? Why isn't there a place to have these conversations of fellow people who just transitioned out of post-education? And why hasn't been there a space to help us develop a game plan to help ourselves in this new season of life? 20-somethings need accountability in communities as support in this post-education transition. And that's when I created Rooted and Ready along with a couple of friends. Rooted and Ready this past January was with a team of 3 of us, and we spearheaded a faith-based New Year's workshop for 20-something-year-olds. And it's less like a New Year's goals discussion, but more so like a system-building workshop. Your future and your becoming is shaped upon the habits that you repeat, not the goals that you set. And so we wanted to leave the attendees with a personalized system to grow from their point A to their point B, and to live the life that they envision and want to become. And so here's a little gif of our team. I reached out to different churches in LA. One of them is Blair. Shout out to you, girl, in the back. She's from the North region. I'm part of a church in Long Beach, and so I reached out to the communities in Long Beach. And another one of our friends and leaders, Soph, she is here or over there in the West Side. And so we kind of got like a survey, and we did a pre-questionnaire of, hey, if you're at this workshop, what would you want to walk away with? And there was a pattern of, it would be nice to have a sense of community. It would be cool to have practicals and tips on consistency when it comes to goal setting. Accountability was a big one, and what does the biblical practicals look like when it comes to setting goals? And so when we did our workshop, we focused on these 5 steps at the top, and this is a screenshot of a template that we handed each one of our attendees. And when I was journeying with this group of people, I kind of thought about the classroom. I thought about that the best part of kindergarten to like 3rd grade was to see and observe and be with little humans as they ponder and question and do and fail and be in awe of the worlds around them, the things that magnetize them. Yet, somewhere along the way, that flame dims. And in my own experience, I felt what it's like to be lost, for my flame to go dark, and not even realize how far I've gone. And so Rooted and Ready means so much to me, because there was a time when I wasn't rooted nor ready. And yet, with a combination of systems to commit to, a group of people to support me, and having something that I want that matters the most to me, and for me, it would be my life and living life with God, I wanted to help people define and design that structure for their lives, to practice and live the life that they crave for themselves. And little did I know that Rooted and Ready was a glimpse of this bigger picture that I envisioned for people on an individual scale, but a picture that can't help but impact on a communal scale. So going back to Trellis, Trellis is a wooden structure that provides support for vines to grow upward. This is a super blurry picture from Facebook Marketplace. A trellis also looks like that over there in the corner. It can be a support, plant support. And without a trellis, a vine would have no direction. When it grows fruit, like grapevines for example, it would be vulnerable to bugs and molding on the floor. But with the trellis, it allows this grapevine to support one upward growth and prevents a collapse when it does become fruitful. It creates this space for the plant to breathe as well as space to show and absorb light. And so a trellis can also look like this. And so here at Trellis is a community of practice, and Rooted and Ready is a space and support system in which we prepare and practice and train in equipping 20-something-year-olds to grow with intention in this season of their life. And structure to me is a form of love. It's a form of love to things that give you life. It's a form of love to yourself, and it's a form of love to your community. And there's a quote from one of my favorite books that really resonate with this philosophy that we're building. And it says, falling in love with something or someone and then building a structure of behavior around it for when those moments when love falters. And that's what Trellis is to me. Oops, I keep thinking back to this. Don't worry, guys. That's what Trellis means to me, is a structure of behavior to support us when love falters, to anchor our lives something deeper than the chaos of anxiety, of hurry, of distractions. Sorry, y'all, this is kind of adjusting to this. Bear with me. And in this modern world of chaos, how often are we taught to train and take captive of these thoughts and these behaviors? And so Trellis's mission is to be a support and structure a way of experiencing life that at its core renews, empowers, and fans the flame that is within. And so, what's in store with Trellis? We're continuing our workshop series, Rooted and Ready, but we're also going to do a themed Rooted and Ready. Our first one is going to be Rooted and Financially Literate, so where we learn about how the money system works here. What do you do? What are your goals, and how do we get to those steps? We take giant goals and break it down into smaller practical systems that we can actually do. And another idea in the works is Rooted and Healthy. How can we, as an individual, maintain a diet and nutrition and an exercise routine that works for you, but also that we have accountability from other people who are striving to do similar goals. Another thing in store is a digital experience for Trellis. So this is an app that I came up with, and here's just a little glimpse. It's called Accountability. Be accountable. And this, think of, if you guys know what Be Real is, think of Be Real times accountability. So like you and your friends keeping each other accountable of the things and goals that you set for yourself, but also maybe want to do together. And so, as we grow, I'm looking for a mentor to sort of guide me, for me to learn from, but also just to bounce back ideas. It'll be cool to have a designer and an engineer to bring to life what accountability could look like. Video editors, I love making content, but it is a lot, and it'd be cool to have a videographer come in, record, and just document this journey of Trellis. Also, brand collabs. One thing that we're looking for is partnerships for either budgeting envelopes or meal prep containers that we can bring and give our participants attending Rooted and Ready events a sort of starter kit to go home and actually apply what they're learning. And so I believe that each person has a unique fire of strengths and gifts. And sometimes that it just needs to be fanned into flame. And I believe that when you are renewed, you're empowered. And so Trellis is an invitation of practice that renews and empowers on an individual level, and naturally, that's going to impact on a communal level. So, let's grow. Thank you for sharing. For letting me share.
Audrey Bune. I really want to take a moment to show an appreciation for the Passioneers. A moment in which they had an idea or thing, it came out of them. Those workshops, those ideas were stuff that they started to grow on over time, but didn't have the space to not only discuss through it, but even discover for themselves what is their calling. What is calling? I believe that my mission is to revitalize education. I believe for a lot of these things, it can be taught. A lot of people say, follow your passions, follow your intuition, but no one really tells you what that even feels like and looks like. Hint, hint, that feeling of reflection we actually did in the beginning was that first step. Now you have a set of emotions that you can compare to over time. And now if something draws to you, you understand the connection to get there. So for my big vision of education is to revitalize and start to instill what this looks like in our educational system, to be able to train people to not only just get skills, but to be able to actually follow their dream and follow their passion. This is something that I've been thinking about for so long, and I'm so happy and have the opportunity to actually articulate this. But how does this look like in play? What does this big vision look like? So I'm building something called the educational pipeline. It's a three-pronged approach on how we're going to approach education. So the first one, Wonky Pets. That is actually a digital brand with cute animals that we embroider on shirts. But the main component of it is in developing mental health conversations for community members in South Central. For this, as you start to engage with our brand, you start to ask better questions of, how do I feel? What brings me joy? And why am I mad? When you start to ask these questions, you start to get at the bigger thing here, leading to South Central innovation. There, after you give some thought, you're asking these questions, now it's, what is my calling, right? We prime you to get into this phase. And then after going into the programming and going into discovering who you want to be, now how can we support you in institutions? I believe that once we start to integrate into some of these spaces and so continue to support students wherever they are, that is where First Gen X comes in. And as an ed tech company that actually sells software to universities to make sure students feel supported wherever they are. And so what is this big vision here? What are we building towards? We're building a network, a community of support and of dreamers. Now, no longer, you're not lost anymore. You're not scared anymore. You can build a network of people not only to guide you and help you find your calling, but to be able to grow and be able to bring it out. I think the biggest thing that I really want to emphasize that I've discussed with my Passioneers, they had these ideas already in them, but there was no one to really take it out. And now that they have it out there, now this is the first touch point they have with you all. Now they get to impact their communities. We're creating a network of visionaries, a network of community leaders to change this in the long term. We're creating a movement here. And so why now? I've been thinking about this and dreaming about this for a really long time, and I've always found myself not fitting in the right boxes. But what I soon discovered was that there needs to be a space and a home for people like us. South Central, my home, has been tainted. Education is outdated, and it's not really fitting for the needs that we need now. Education needs a new revitalization. And the reason why I'm here now is because there's so many dreams, there's so many people, there's so many communities that just gets lost over time. And I'm tired of those dreams and passions get lost. And so the reason why I'm stepping in this now It's because I believe this is the new revolution. A revolution that brings in passion and interest first. Because when you're able to talk about the things that you're passionate about, when you're able to actually identify the emotions that you love and the interests that you have, it starts to bleed out. People start to smile around you. You smile, they smile back. You start to gain empathy for other people. And you start to really understand how to actually get it done. You may not know the skill set yet, but you understand that what is the next step? What is this vision that you have? I believe we all have vision, but we haven't found out what that even defines. In this new wave of authenticity now, I think this is the best time than ever. Education is now no longer serving us, and there's an awakening happening now of what does it mean to follow your job or follow your passion. And I'm so happy, and I'm here saying to you all here that this is the start of this revolution. This is the movement that I plan to create, not only nationally, but globally, of what it looks like to actually identify who you are. Ask yourself the question, who am I? You'd be surprised what comes out. And you'd be surprised how many people don't even ask this question. I really want to specify with you all that this is my calling. Just as much as Audrine and Michael described their calling and their interests, this is my calling, and this is something that I know, this is my dedicated life. Like, this is the thing. I found it, and I'm going to help South Central communities, and I'm going to help visionaries and passioneers in the future. This is going to be the next movement. So this is our next steps. These are how you can support us, actually. So for South Central Innovation, we're looking for warm connections to bring into high schools. Right now, I'm engaging with college level students, but if we can train this earlier, we start to develop what this passion and interest looks like. And then for Wonky Pets, we're actually looking for more brand connections and looking for places to sell. And then for First Gen X, we're looking for warm connections and actual angel investors into what building educative platforms look like at a large scale. I really want to specify with you all the power of discovering your passion and your interest. You saw it here. You saw it now. Thank you all for being a part of this journey with me. Because guess what? You guys just made history here today. This is the first step at a revolution, the first domino that's going to topple and change the world as we know it. Because once we start asking better questions in education, once we start supporting our students better, you'll notice that our communities are going to change. You're going to notice that we actually can connect to each other better. This is a program that I've been thinking about for a really long time. And I've been doing this with a limited amount of funding. I left my tech job back in 2023, and I've been working on this and theorizing about this stuff for a really long time. And I really want to specify, imagine the impact, the love, the community that we can build with $100 million. The scale, the change that not only brings our communities together, but brings the love that we have and allows us to connect with each other as people. That's what I believe Passioneers is. That's what I believe South Central Innovation is. And that's why I'm building this educational pipeline. And so I want to thank you all for joining me here. And I really want to give a special thanks to all the people who have been supporting me. My family, my South Central Innovation team, my Wonky Pets team, my First Gen X team. This is a community effort. This is not just me, but I am the visionary pushing this forward. And I can see a brighter future for us. Just as much as Audrine and Michael have their visions for music and their visions for the community. It takes one step at a time. Thank you all for joining me tonight, and I hope you have a great day.